Welcome back, you lovely Marvels. Hi, Dana.
Hey, Gwen. How you doing? Technology
Good.
issues this morning, eh?
Oh my God! You almost had a Canadian. You had some of Canadian come out. Yeah, eh?
I am in Seattle. We're very close to Vancouver,
You
so yeah.
are.
Yeah.
So no, that
My Chicago. I'm originally from Chicago, and if I talk to
yeah,
my Chicago peeps, they all say I sound different now. They're like,
yeah,
"You
mine
totally
too.
have like this Canadian thing." I'm like, "Oh well, yeah."
Oh
Because they all
really?
talk like this. Every once in a while, it slips out. I'll say salad like that, and then my wife
Salad.
will start cracking up, and she'll say salad.
Oh,
It's a
you know what?
Midwest thing. Salad.
What slips out for me is sorry. And people, and it's weird because it just
That's
comes
a very
out,
Canadian,
and
yeah,
people are like, "What is that?" And I'm like, "Oh
yeah.
my gosh!" Like I don't know. Like it came from the
That
depths somewhere. But
and
I
I
go
end
back to
way more so
Canada,
yeah, oh god, you
and
totally revert in, like, 5
you
seconds, I think.
revert. Yep, and then you come
Yeah,
back, and then you lose it like very
yeah.
quickly.
Like, everything
Yeah,
ends in, like, the question mark, even when you're talking normally. In Vancouver, everybody talks like this.
yeah. Eh?
Yeah, okay. So, anyway, this is not what we were gonna talk about today, but we always start
I
with
mean,
some fun,
maybe
silliness.
we should do a podcast just in kind of our home accents.
Oh, that'd be I don't know if I could do mine anymore long term.
I don't know if I could do I mean, I could definitely pull a Canadian one for a while. I mean, I think, growing up in a Malaysian home,
Oh, god.
oh man, that would be, it
Many
would really
influences.
tax my
Yeah,
brain. Like my brain,
yeah.
yes, there's a lot
But there's
there.
a lot of like my relatives and my parents were all from Wisconsin, and it's that northern Wisconsin, kind of Minnesota. Oh yeah, which is all like the Norwegian influence. Do you? Oh, you had a really good time when we went to go see the movie Fargo. We were cracking up because
Oh
it was
my
all
God.
my relatives, and everybody else in the thing was like, "Why are they laughing? Someone's head just got blown off," and we're like, "Ah!" Yeah. So
Oh, I had the same reaction when I watched Crazy Rich Asians. Because
oh
crazy,
yeah,
they're they're
yeah.
from Singapore and Malaysia, and I'm like, oh my gosh, the words that they said. I mean,
Oh my god.
there's one scene where they use a kind of a foul word that no one else
Yeah.
knows unless you
Uh,
speak that language. I and my husband were the only, and my husband only knows because by proxy, but
yeah.
I was laughing my what off, and no one else was laughing. Nobody, like
Uh,
everyone's looking at me, and
uh,
I was like, whatever. Like it was great.
I'm the queen of segues, so I'm going to use that as a segue.
Yes, you are
It
the
sort
queen
of
of
is a
segues.
segue into like when you can feel more than one thing at a time.
What?
Yeah. So you can be watching that movie and be keying into the plot, but also be cracking up at the same time because there's this one little layer that
Yeah.
you're laughing at. Or for us, laughing, it felt inappropriate because if you've ever seen the movie Fargo, it's pretty
Oh
bloody, and
yeah.
we were laughing. So but
Yeah.
you can feel more than one thing at a time. We were talking before we logged on today, and this was a revelation for me. I remember. I could still remember my therapist talking to me, and she had her hands in the air, and
Yep.
she's like, "You
Yep.
can be very angry at somebody and then be sad at the same time." And the reason we got to that point is I kept kind of perseverating on what do I feel? Because
Yeah.
I'm feeling this and I'm really angry. And it was like the thoughts that go along with the anger, but I'm also sort
Yeah.
of sad at the same time. I had a recent experience that a lot of my followers on TikTok, I've talked about it. We were all excited, got a new puppy. I was allergic to him. We had him for 2 days, had to return him to the breeder. But the overwhelming feeling that morning when we got a hold of the breeder and she said, yes, of course, bring him back, was relief because I was so freaked out and overwhelmed and allergic and everything else. And I was also sad at the same time. And I was confused because I was like,
Yeah.
well, if I'm sad, does it mean I don't want to take him back? I want to keep him, right? I was
Yeah.
already starting to form an attachment. But at the same time, I was really wanting to take care of myself and feeling very overwhelmed and freaked out because I was allergic. And it was confusing
Yeah.
in the moment, right? So I remember talking about that with my therapist when I had that revelation of, I was angry at this person, but at the same time, I loved them. And I didn't know how to hold those together.
Yeah.
I grew up in a household that was very much about right or wrong, good or bad, black or white. What are you feeling? And as a kid, I'd be like, as an autistic, undiagnosed kid, well, how do you feel? I'm like, well, I don't know. There was a lot of I don't knows. And I think part of it
Yeah.
was the autism piece, but another part of it was sort of like, if you put it out there, this is what I feel. That's all that was seen at that point. Like if you said, I'm sad, you couldn't say you were angry too. That didn't make sense. So it was a
Yeah.
huge thing for me to learn that, oh, you can have both of those at one time. It really helps with that confusion, right? My wife and I will talk about that a lot. We were talking about that morning when we were taking the dog back. She said, now I know we're making the right decision. I'm totally going along with that, but I'm also feeling kind of sad. I'm like, oh my God, thank God you said that, because I'm feeling those
Yeah.
two things at the same time too. We're more complex than a single emotion,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
especially if the other person is seeing you crying, let's say, or you're laughing in a movie when you should, when no one else is, it
Yeah.
could be that you're also feeling that, but the thing they're seeing is this other thing, right?
Yeah. It's,
Doesn't mean it's
we
wrong.
are, no, and I mean, this is kind of the heart of dialectical, right?
Yeah,
DBT, in
yeah,
regards
yeah.
to like, we are able to feel multiple emotions at one time, and sometimes in opposition, opposing kind of emotions. And I
Mhm.
think about this in relationships a lot. And,
Yeah.
oftentimes, we have emotions because we're bumping up against somebody.
Mhm, mhm.
I think sometimes we don't often have like big emotions on our own. You know
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean? Like,
yeah.
but it was really helpful even for me in my own work as well, Dana. And I think this has been really helpful for just many of my clients, especially when they're having big emotions in relationship to someone significant in their life,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And it's like,
Ripe for that, right? Yeah.
right, especially like, and I'm working with adolescents, so I'm working with a lot of
Mhm,
teens
mhm,
and parents, right? But this idea of, I am so angry
mhm.
with you, or you are very angry with me, and you love me.
Yeah.
And I think that that's so important, because for some of my clients, the anger, it kind of equaled not loving. And
Or
so there
distance, like
was,
if I'm angry, I'm gonna
right.
push that person away and they're gonna be gone, and yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And that kind of feel of abandonment or that
yeah,
separation was so overwhelming for that person. And it wasn't
yeah.
until we're like, look, a lot of times, our degree of anger can be really in relationship to how much we care about the person.
Right, yeah, yeah.
Because, if you don't love the person, you don't care about the person, it's like,
You're
hopefully
apathetic.
they don't bother you, right? Too
Yeah,
much,
yeah,
right?
right, right.
So to be able to have that, to be able to be, sad and relieved
Mhm,
at the same time, to
mhm,
be
yeah,
able to be excited and scared, to
yeah,
be right. All of these things really free you up to not be on this emotional
yeah.
pendulum of one or the
Yeah.
other.
You can think of like charts that they use, "What are you feeling?" And you point to the one
I
emoji. It's like,
know.
oh, yeah, maybe you could point to more than one. Doesn't have to be
Yeah.
one thing, and you're right, I mean, relationships are ripe for that because you love the person,
Yeah.
let's say, and there's times you wanna kill them. Being
Yeah.
silly, never.
It's an and, right?
Yeah,
I love
yeah,
you and I'm going to strangle you, but
okay,
I
and
won't, because I've
right,
invested way too much money in you, right?
yeah.
I what I'm just kidding. Yeah.
And
Sure.
time, and there's a great scene in A League of Their Own, where Tom Hanks's character, it's after he's really gotten attached to these women players, right?
Yeah.
And the one woman, Evelyn, keeps not throwing the ball to the cutoff. If I'm going to use a baseball analogy here. And Tom Hanks's character, he's actually doing the thing with his hands, like he wants to strangle her. And he's like, Evelyn, Evelyn. And you can see him sort of, and he kind of goes like this. And what he's doing is he has affection for her and doesn't want to hurt her. But at the same time, he wants to strangle her because he's told her to
Yeah.
throw the ball to the cutoff over and over and over. And he just
Yeah.
says, you're going to work on that in the off season, right? And she just kind of goes, yeah, because finally he hasn't just yelled at her, and then the message actually gets in, right? But
Yeah.
that's what that reminded me of when you said, like, with someone you care about, oftentimes it can feel like you have to restrain it back because they're going to go away, but you can also, that's a huge hurdle to overcome, is to be angry at somebody and them come back. or
Yeah.
they're going to come back. That's huge.
Yeah.
And there's always a pivotal place in a new relationship, right? It's usually around the 6-month mark. I always tell people, if you
Yeah.
get past 6 months, 6 to 8 months, and it's usually when you get past that honeymoon period and you're being more real and you have a chance to be angry, and then you come back and repair it, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then you start to learn, oh, duality, I can have more than one thing going on at a time. Yeah. And
Yeah.
usually
It's
do. I mean, emotions aren't that clean cut. Yeah.
no, and this also reminds me of like it's so interesting. I've worked with multiple women, especially,
Mm-hmm.
who, are kind of they've had complex trauma in their life,
Mm-hmm.
difficult family situations and upbringings and things, and not really needing to kind of squash their own emotions in
Yeah.
relationship to their environment. Um, and then they become adults and more kind of autonomous. And it's clear that they're adults and, not needing to depend on other people. But they start to allow themselves to have their emotion.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then now people are like, you're bipolar. And I'm like, can we knock the pathologizing off, please? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
give this 25-year-old a moment to finally have the emotions.
Emote.
And,
Yeah.
if I imagine like if you weren't allowed to emote for survival, and, and
Oh
I
God.
say that, because this happens in systems and sometimes unintentionally or intentionally, but usually,
Mm-hmm.
they're broken systems, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's like you never exercised, flexed that muscle,
No.
practiced emoting, got the familiar sense of emoting, having it
Right.
be safe to emote, these things. And so,
You
yeah,
learn to
it's going
not
to come off
even
strong.
exactly, and you don't trust yourself. You
Yeah.
learn to not trust yourself. So yeah, once it comes out, I had a mentor of mine used to use a balloon as an analogy. She'd blow up the balloon, and then when you barely let the air out, it kind of goes. She's like, that's like the whine. That's like if you have
I
strong
love
emotion, the
this.
pressure of the balloon coming out of a small hole,
Yeah.
and it's when you open it, it does a right.
I love it.
That's what it's like when you finally let it out. It's ugly, and it's
Yeah.
people talk about the ugly crying. I love that phrase,
Yeah,
not
it's
because
awesome.
ugly, but it's just like you're letting it all
Yeah, it's
come, and
awesome. It's
it's
like
not about
it's not and all.
yeah, it's not impression management and everything else. Yeah. I was also thinking
Ooh,
when you were
Dana,
talking about
impression management.
ah, yeah.
Shut up.
For our listeners, that's really managing what you look like to other people, like worrying
Yeah.
about it. Like, how do I physically look to this other
Uh,
person? If I'm ugly crying, don't look at me, I'm hideous, that kind of thing. You want to make sure you look a certain way, right? And women, there's been all kinds of studies that show that women are socialized in almost every country on the globe to do that more. So that
yeah.
could lend to what you're talking about again with finally letting those emotions out. And then there's this idea of which emotion is right.
Yep.
I mean, I remember that a lot growing up. Which one's valid? Which one am I allowed to have? And that same mentor with the balloon analogy said, if you have an emotion for more than 3 seconds, it's not empathy for someone else's, it's yours. And I was like, well, I have a lot of emotions for more than 3 seconds. And at the same time, right? There isn't right or wrong to it. It just is. It's just the feeling you're having. And we really
Yep.
get caught up in our culture around, do you deserve to feel that way? Are you being rational or not? Are you being bipolar? Like you said, they get labeled with a pathology, like, what's wrong with you? That's not what you should be feeling right now. You should be feeling X, Y, and Z. And there's a lot of cultural presses or dysfunctional presses for that, for sure. Right.
Oh my gosh. I mean, Dana, impression management for me is almost more resonant and powerful than the word masking, because
Oh, yeah, yeah,
they're
yeah.
right. They're similar, right?
Yes, yeah.
Like, right. And so, but this impression management is something that takes so much energy, because you're
Oh
thinking
my
not
God.
only about yourself, but also about the other person and what they might do and what they might perceive and what they,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
And I
yeah.
think, I'm thinking about the episode we did about the difference between social anxiety and autism,
Mhm,
right?
mhm. Yeah.
And that we were talking about it really as not one or the other. And it's a great kind of thematic thing because we're talking about that today. It's not one
Right.
or the other. It is
Right.
that it is complex and multi-layered. And what we don't want is to become completely dysregulated by having rigid
Yeah.
ideas,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
If
Yep.
we want to think about that. But this impression management is a real deal. I mean,
Oh
and I
God.
don't
Yeah.
think this is just in the neurodivergent community,
No. No.
right?
No. Yeah. Yeah. We
Yeah.
get socialized early at things that are part of how society functions. Like as a little kid in kindergarten or whatever, pre-K, learns to, not hit other kids or
Yeah.
learns to pay attention. Those are actually forms of sort of socially sanctioned impression management. Otherwise, it would just be pandemonium. People would be doing whatever
Yeah.
they want, whenever they want. And every animal and being on the planet has a version of that where it creates order within those groups and so on. So some of it is normal and you'd expect. But at the same time, that can go to the nth degree to the point where you start to lose yourself. And so that, there are some commonalities with masking for anybody. Masking, we talk about it a lot in autism and neurodivergent folks a lot, but that doesn't mean that neurotypical people don't mask. They do, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just this process of learning to do that to try to fit in becomes developmental a lot for neurodivergent folks. But that impression management thing, same thing. It's not an exclusive thing to neurodiversity,
Yeah.
but it's a very powerful motivator. And there's so many factors that go into it. Age, gender, your cultural background, where you live, what your parents react to, how your friends respond to you, everything. It's this constant feedback from the environment that shape how you operate and who you are and what you do. And then of course we as therapists try to get in there and pick it apart a little bit to have it be, well, is this really who you are, or is this like who your mother instilled in you and you don't like it and it's
Yeah.
causing problems? And that's sort of our job, is to get in there and try to disarticulate pieces so that you can be
Yeah.
living as congruently as possible. And that takes some time, right?
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right in regards to, ecological pressures. Whether that's, immediate, in your home or your community, your state, your country, your school, like there, that does make a huge difference. And, I think for those of you who are listening and are regular listeners for, you're the regular Marvels, right? That Dana and I aren't extremists. I mean, apart from when it comes to, human rights and dignity.
Yeah.
We are psychologist bashers, however, and we feel like because we're in the in-group, we can do that.
Yeah, there you go.
But, there is a place for rules and expectations because that creates also safety.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And so,
exactly.
So what we're not saying like, be unapologetically you.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And know where and when you can and should not do things.
Don't be a jerk,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And chances are, I tell my clients this, if you've made it into adulthood, there's no way you're going to all of a sudden turn into this person that has no regulation. It's not going to happen. So you don't have to worry about that. But, dialing it back a little bit so you can be more authentically yourself is great. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that could even be, if you know your emotions and, speaking of dialecticals or opposing emotions, I mean, I know many, and I think I might even fall in this category sometimes, where I've been invited somewhere to a group thing. I really like the people.
Yeah.
I adore them and I love them. And there's a part of me who doesn't want to do it. And I go.
Yeah.
I go because and I feel fine when I'm there. And I'm not necessarily drained when I leave, but I feel the pull of introversion. As I get older. And, but again, not wanting to go is more about my own energetic level or my own, putting myself in certain, social situations that may or I don't know. Sometimes I'm impulsive. So I
But
say things and like,
you're feeling though that dichotomy of
yeah,
go, don't go at the same
don't
time, and
go
that's
to
sort of what,
even, and it
yeah,
doesn't mean I don't adore and love those people.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It just means you
Right.
have more than one piece to it. Yeah,
Yeah. And I think that happens a lot, like for my clients who are like,
yeah,
no, like I love that person. I want to go to their wedding. No,
yeah.
I love that person. I want to go celebrate their birthday. But oh my gosh, the cost it's going to take, you know? And so,
Yeah, yeah,
but to be able to do that and be like, yeah, I'm going to go and I'm only going to stay for an hour. So I'm going to drive on my own. I'm not going to drive with my parents, you know, or
right,
whatever.
right. Yeah.
Like lean right in, you know, there's nothing wrong, I think, with things like that, you know, where you're
Yeah, because
making the
it's like
choices.
me going to this big conference a couple weeks ago. I knew it was going to be draining, and I tried to do it differently, well, for lots of reasons, right?
For
There
lots
was
of reasons at
there was
APA.
some really good talks that I went to that they're younger psychologists who are rabble rousing in
Love it.
terms of diversity. So that was awesome. But I did go back to my hotel quite a few times just to have like an hour of downtime, and I was exhausted when I got home, and planned a few days to recover. But I did want to go for lots of different reasons. A lot of it was to see
Yeah.
my colleagues and students doing amazing things and things like that. So it
Yeah.
just because something does have a negative effect on you. I love what you say about your dog. It's a net positive.
It's net positive,
Yeah.
baby.
It doesn't mean it has to be all good because it won't be. That's not the real world. It means that overall, just like you said, I'm going to go for an hour. I'm going to drive myself. Give yourself the escape hatch. The interesting thing is when you have the escape hatch, you usually can tolerate a lot more
Yep.
because it's
Yep.
also in your control and you can pull the ripcord whenever you want, which is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, it reminds me of the alternate of that, which is having a difficult time starting something
Yeah.
that you have to
Yeah.
do. That's
Yeah.
difficult. You know, it's if you're like, you give yourself, I only need to sit my butt in this chair and I only
Mhm.
need to do this for 15 minutes. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
nothing else. What you do find is after you've taken that initial step and you can
Mhm.
get into your flow zone, you most of the time okay. But the permission to stop
Mhm.
if you want after 15 minutes when that timer goes off
It's
is
huge.
incredibly
Yeah.
freeing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, it's not that you don't like your job. It's just that that task is hard.
Yeah. It doesn't mean you're
Those,
wrong or yeah,
right.
exactly.
Or
Yeah.
you're lazy or unmotivated or a bad employee or blah, 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 but whatever.
Exactly. That's
It's
right.
so to be able to really, I think, hold the opposites, hold multiple
Mhm.
things together
Mhm.
really, really does allow us then to determine our escape plans.
Yeah, but it also teaches us about ourselves, escape
Yeah.
planning being one of those things, but yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. No, for
yeah.
sure. For sure.
I think it also, though, makes us
Um,
where we're not just avoiding everything, because that can happen too if you're like, "If I
oh
had any
yeah.
negativity to that experience, I shouldn't be doing it," and that's not
Yeah.
necessarily the case. Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. I'm laughing because Dana used the term rabble rousing. And I love that because I understand what a rabble rouser is, and I'm sure most of our audience knows what a rabble rouser
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
However, if I asked my almost 16-year-old kid what a rabble rouser is, I mean, I bet you she'd be able to get it from the context, but it's just not. It's not
Oh,
a phrase. It's not a
not a
term we
phrase to
hear.
use. No.
You
We're
know,
getting older, aren't we? Yeah.
I know you did make a reference to my that I should be grandfathered into some sort of psychology to a
Oh, but if you've
psychology
been
thing, and I was like,
practicing for X
watch
number of
it,
years.
Dana, watch it. Anyway,
Have you not
on that,
has it
what?
not been 20 years since you graduated?
Yeah, girl.
Oh, yeah,
Shoo.
yeah. Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna stop talking about that now. I
We're gonna
just had
stop
my
talking. Yeah,
birthday number 59, so I know. Yeah.
love it, Dana.
Oh god.
You don't look 59, Dana.
Thank you. Yeah. And my wife will
Okay.
always be 10 months older than me, so I get to watch her turn 60 before I do.
Oh, that's like my husband and I, but I'm older.
Okay. Oh,
Where, but
bummer.
like, and it's like February, March, April, May, June, July, August. 8 months.
Okay, yeah.
So
And I'm
yeah,
I'm liking getting older, the wiseness that
me
comes
too.
with it, and then I'm not with the body pain, so there's 2 things that are operating at the same time.
Completely agreed. My body is not my own. It's like if it could make a decision about in or out of menopause, I'd appreciate it. Thank you very much. All right. Anyway, on that wonderful note, Marvels, thank you so much for being here. We love you in our community. keep commenting. Oh
Yes,
my
absolutely.
gosh. Keep the comments
Love it.
positive. You know, if you got something negative, just say it nicely.
Yeah,
That's
there you
all I
go.
ask.
Yeah,
It's
you don't have
okay
to
to be, it's
be
okay to have
mean.
a
You don't have
different
to be mean to
opinion.
us.
You know, like, okay, you know, like I get it, you know, but
Yeah,
we're not against, you know, different opinions. Like
yeah.
at all, actually. I mean, Dana and I welcome those. So feel
Yeah,
free to
just
comment.
no
Just
trolling. It's a no troll zone.
gosh, I
Yeah,
know. Good
yeah.
grief. Anyway,
God.
all right. That's the one thing we do discriminate against. Trolls. All right, on that note, see you later.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.